So now Spider-Man, Peter Parker, it's the next day. He's now thinking about what he said to Gwen. He hasn't spoke to Aunt May in a very long time. And then he starts thinking about what his, in the dream sequence, what his uncle told him. Speak to Dr. Connors. Peter says, I'm going to go to Aunt May. I'm going to talk to Aunt May. He goes to Aunt May's house. He looks at her and he hugs her. And she's like, Peter, how are you doing? You've moved out. You moved out. It's been so quiet here. And he's like, yeah, yeah. She's like, how are you doing? Are you all right? You can come here if you want. The money is getting funny. And he's like, money is getting funny. But Aunt May, I just want to help you and make sure that you're all right. She's like, Peter, you're stretching yourself very thin with you paying for that apartment and then you also paying me to help me pay the bills. Peter, I'm all right. You don't need to do this. You don't need to. He's like, but I want to. I feel obligated to. And he hugs her and they hug. So then he says, Aunt May, I've been trying to push this out of my head for a very long time. I've been trying and trying and trying. And I haven't been thinking about it that much, and I haven't been talking about it that much. But there has to be something that you guys aren't telling me in regards to my parents. Aunt May's face goes. They sit down. She says, Peter, your father had a very complicated relationship with his best friend and his boss, Norman Osborn. Peter looks at her. She continues. Your father left to keep you safe. Peter says, keep me safe from what? She says, I don't know. I have no idea. He said that he was leaving to keep you safe. And after he left, a few days later, some people came knocking on our door, talking about they had died in a plane crash and that they were running away. And then she gets quiet. And Peter says, running away from what? Why were they running? What happened? Aunt May looks and she says, your parents, your father, was taking his research and he was going to sell it to another company. He was selling out his best friend. Peter goes, what? Why would he do that? Aunt May says, I don't know. I don't know. And Peter, he begins thinking, Why would my dad do that? Why? He wasn't a bad guy, was he? And Aunt May goes, definitely not. Then why would he do that? I don't know, Peter. I have no idea. I don't know. I just know that he dropped you here and left. He ran. And Ben and I, we took care of you. Peter says, and I'm very grateful for you and Uncle Ben. I love you. And he hugs Aunt May. He hugs her. And he says, Aunt May, I need to take you out. Let's go somewhere. And she says, where are you getting this money from, Peter? And he's like, don't worry about it. Let's go somewhere. Let's go out to eat. Let's go somewhere. Come on. And he takes her, and they go out to this restaurant to eat. And they're eating, they're having a good time, conversating. It's very human. It's kind of like a montage thing, but it's very human. And with the words that they're saying are very human. And it's just so, it's like you're connecting with Peter and Aunt May. And so after that, they're leaving. And they're going to get a cab. They're hauling a taxi cab. And then we see down the street is Eddie Brock. Peter goes, Eddie. And Eddie goes, Peter. And then Eddie comes over. And Peter introduces Eddie to Aunt May. Aunt May meets Eddie. And Aunt May's eyes, when she hears Eddie Brock, her eyes go, Eddie Brock. And Peter goes, yeah, this is Eddie Brock. And she's like, oh, nice to meet you. And they shake hands. And Eddie's like, I gotta go. I gotta go down to the Bugle. Peter, when are you coming down to the gym? No, me and you could spar. I could teach you some more stuff. Peter's like, soon. I don't know. Sure. This weekend, will that be cool? And Eddie's like, yeah, I gotta go though. And Eddie runs off. And then Peter and Aunt May get into the cab. And Aunt May has this thought-filled face. And Peter looks at her and he says, what's wrong? And Aunt May looks at Peter and says, Eddie Brock? And Aunt May goes, you know that his parents work with your dad. And Peter says, yeah, I know, it's crazy. Do you know anything else about that? And Aunt May looks and she says, no, I just know that something happened with Eddie Brock's dad in Oscorp. And Peter goes, something happened with Eddie Brock's dad in Oscorp. Aunt May goes, yeah, but I don't know what. Richard didn't really tell me. Peter goes, I have to ask Eddie about it. And then they go off. And the cab pulls off, drops Aunt May off at her house, and Peter swings back to his apartment. And he's sitting there, and he's thinking about his father, and his father running away and selling the research that he worked on. Peter's like, why would he do that? I don't understand. Why would he do that? And Peter is deep in thought. Then he goes under his bed and he pulls out the briefcase that had his father's stuff in it, and he's looking through it. Then he pulls out the files, some stuff that he got on the symbiote, and he's reading some stuff on it. Worked with Eddie Brock Sr. He's just reading some stuff. He's just looking through it. And then he pulls out this like book. It's like a book, and it has all of his dad's work in it, all of his notes and stuff. And he's reading through it and stuff. It's talking about a whole bunch of scientific stuff that's not really relevant. And he sees something. It's like a note to self, and it says, something's going on with Norman, and I don't really know what. And Peter, it catches his eye. And then Peter looks up, and he looks around like he's spider sense going off, and we hear zoom, zoom, zoom. He's like, and then Spider-Man Peter jumps off of his bed. He jumps, does the spin, and when he spins, that's when his suit comes on. It comes on, and then Electro is standing in his bedroom, and he's Spider-Man though. He has on the Spider-Man suit. Electro is standing in his bedroom, and he's like, "You were supposed to be my best friend," and he and Spider-Man jumps out of the apartment, and Electro begins to chase Spider-Man, and Spider-Man's web swinging, and he's like, how does he know where I live? And he turns around, he starts shooting web balls at him, shooting web balls. He like toom 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 toom, and Electro goes, and it it fries on his face. It fries, and he goes, and he starts shooting electricity. Spider-Man's jumping and out the way. It's hitting buildings. Spider-Man's like, this is dangerous. I gotta take him somewhere. And Spider-Man looks over, and he sees this. It's like near the bridge, almost kind of in Central Park, and he's like, I don't think anyone's there, and he jumps and he's web swinging. He's leading Electro to Central Park, and he's saying jokes to get Electro really riled up and get him to keep following him, talking about him looking like a Smurf, calls him, a whole bunch of stuff, just a whole bunch of stuff. And they get to Central Park, Spider-Man lands, and he's like, what is your problem? How do you know where I live? And Spider-Man and Electro's like, you were my best friend, and you tried to kill me. You're coming with me. And Spider-Man jumps out the way, and he goes up to him, and he tries to land a punch on Electro, and Electro he doesn't disintegrate, but he becomes electricity, and Spider-Man misses, and then Electro appears back up and hits him this blow to the stomach, and he goes, ah, with the electricity. Spider-Man flies up in the air. Electro goes up, and Spider-Man is in there, and he shoots a web down at Electro, and it's like his shoulder, and he shoots another one down at the ground, and Spider-Man begins trying to pull himself down, and Electro goes, yeah! And then we see the thing, it's becoming yellow, and it's like the electricity is shooting out, and it's like blue and orange and red, and Spider-Man's like, and he's pulling himself down. We see him pulling himself down until he gets right here to Electro, and Spider-Man goes, ah! Boom! One good to the face, and just we see the electricity. It looks like kind of like a liquidy thing. It goes back like, and Electro goes, oh! And Spider-Man goes, ah, ah, and then we see like almost like the suit is moving, because, you know, symbiote's on him. Suit is moving, and it goes like trying to help, like, fix everything. And Spider-Man goes, ah, and his neck cracks and everything, and ah, and he gets down to one knee, and Electro is like, because Spider-Man is really strong, in case you didn't know. Electro, oh. And it's like we see electricity trying to like heal everything, much similar to how Spider-Man's suit was trying to like fix Peter's hand, and he's like, oh. Electro was like, and he coming back, and Spider-Man looks at him, and he's like, and he webs him, and he webs him down, and then Electro goes, yeah! And he shoots a whole bunch of like rapid. Think of Dragon Ball Z when they be like, ah! It was like that. He was like shooting electricity everywhere, and Spider-Man is dodging everything, like, and he's getting close to Electro, kicks him in the face. Boom! Electro goes, oh! And then Spider-Man hits him like in the face. Boom! Back, hits him up. Boom! Webs him down. And this is all hurting Spider-Man too. And you can see the electricity with each time he connects with him. The electricity is hitting Spider-Man also, but he's ignoring the injuries. And he hits him up in the air, webs him down, brings him down. Boom! He then goes up to him and he kicks him. Boom! And he tries to web Electro down. And he's like, and he's thinking, and he even says, how do I beat him? What do I do? And he looks over, and there's water. There's water, because they're in Central Park. There's water. He's like, I know what to do. He's like, I'm going to get him in that water. And Electro's on the ground now, and he's all webbed up to the ground. And Spider-Man goes, Sparky, what's wrong with you? You can't be doing all this. Do you know how much it costs for electricity in New York? You're raising my bill too high. And Electro gets up, rah, and all of the web begins to like burn. We see it, and Spider-Man jumps because Electro goes boom, and it's like a shock wave, like rippling on the ground. And Spider-Man jumps, and he jumps high, and he lands on like kind of near on the sidewalk near the lake. And Electro gets up, and he begins flying again with electricity hitting the ground, like. And Spider-Man looks at him, and he's like, uh-oh, I think it made him mad. And then Electro goes, ah! And Spider-Man jumps out the way, and he goes, ah! And then Spider-Man begins to run around the lake, and Electro is following him. He's coming toward the lake, and Spider-Man is facing this way. Electro's behind him, right? And he's facing this way, and then he quickly turns, and he's like, and he like shoots a web ball right in his face. Electro goes, and then it burns, and then we just see Electro getting kicked right here, like boom. And Electro flying, like, toward the water. He's flying toward the water. And then Spider-Man webs him, and he, like, pulls him, making sure that he hits the water, like, and Electro goes right in the water. Boom! And then we see the water, like, just light up in the blue, and it goes, and it begins to bubble. Spider-Man goes, and he's like, looking at Electro like in the water, and we hear, ah! And then we see a whole bunch of cars pulling up, like SWAT cars pulling. They're all black, and then they get out of the car. People are getting out of the car looking like SWAT teams, similar to the same people that took Electro earlier, and they begin shooting at Spider-Man. Spider-Man goes, Spider-Sense. And he sees them, they're shooting, and he goes, and he's like dodging everything. It's pretty sweet. One dude, while in the midst of all this happening, we see the camera pull back, so we see Spider-Man right here, and he's like dodging and stuff, and they're all shooting at him. And another guy goes in the water, and he basically has these like huge clamps, and he puts it around Electro's neck, and he pulls him out of the water, and Electro, and he looks really bad. We see that thing is like getting to red, and he pulls him and puts the clamps on him, and he pulls him and throws him like into the truck. And Spider-Man is like dodging everything. A dude tries to go up behind him and hit Spider-Man with a baton. Spider-Man dodges the baton, kicks him in the face, and then these other people try to come in, Spider-Man kicking them, and he's just fighting. It's really sweet. It's really Spider-Man just fighting everybody like do until until all of them, like this guy over here is like, he's like, time to go. And everybody like turns around and starts running. He's like, no, where are y'all going? Spider-Man webs one of them and pulls him back. Who do you work for? And then the guy doesn't say anything. And he looks like he's under mind control or something. Like he's like, Spider-Man's like, who do you work for? And he's just, Spider-Man, he puts him down. And he turns around, and he runs into the truck. Spider-Man's looking. He's like, what is going on? And then Spider-Sense goes off, and a guy tries to hit him with a gun. Spider-Man goes, boom, and then they start fighting. And this guy can actually fight. Like he's like, what the heck? He can actually fight. And Spider-Man, and he's like. And Spider-Man is dodging stuff, and he's trying to hit him, and the guy's moving. So then Spider-Man, he looks at him, and because this guy doesn't look like that. He looks, like he's ready. Spider-Man webs the cheek, and he pulls him down, and just connects right to his lip. Like, pulls him down, whap, boom, guy goes back, hits the ground. Spider-Man picks him up. Who do you work for, and where are you guys from? And then the guy says, the guy looks at Spider-Man and says, none of your business. And then Spider-Man Spider-Sense goes off too. We hear choop choop, and it's and Spider-Man's like, ah! And Spider-Man falls down, and the guy gets off, and he tries to clamp Spider-Man like legs and arms, and we see it like doom, doom, and it's clamped. And then Spider-Man goes, and then he goes black. Now, what's happening now, once it goes black, the camera goes into like this first person mode. So imagine it goes black, and then the camera goes into this first person mode of Spider-Man. And we see his hands, and they're clamped, and then we look up, and the guy's there, and he clamps Spider-Man's neck. And then the camera goes back, and Spider-Man all of a sudden goes and hits the guy really hard. This guy goes flying, and when he's flying, he webs him, pulls him back, and goes boom, 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 and hits him really quickly. And then does this big thrust kick and this guy hits a tree and hits the ground. Spider-Man walks up to him and pulls off the neck clamp, and he goes up to him and he picks him up and he holds him up by his neck, and he's like looking at him like that, just holding him up by his neck, like. And the guy looks terrified. And he says, Oscorp, we work for Oscorp. Spider-Man is like squeezing his neck, It's like crazy. He is squeezing the mess out of this guy's neck. The guy, and then Spider-Man looks at him, and Spider-Man does this thing, like he's like, and he throws him to the ground. And Spider-Man like jumps really far out of the shot. And it fades to black. Then it fades to black. Now, starts back up. We see Peter Parker. He's laying in his bed sleep. He's laying in his bed sleep. He wakes up and his phone is ringing. And with his phone ringing, he doesn't know who it is, but he answers it like he's expecting it to be J. Jonah Jameson or someone. He answers it. Hello? Now, this is what's very interesting. The person on the phone is Harry Osborn. And he says to Peter, Peter Parker? Is this Peter Parker? And Peter sits up. Yes? Who is this? This is Harry Osborn. My father told me that you and I used to know each other when we were really young. Peter goes, your father's Norman Osborn? Harry says, yes. We used to know each other. Really? Harry says, yes. Peter says, I'm sorry, I don't really remember you. And Harry says, that's the same thing that I said. I don't really remember you. But my father said that we were friends. We were really good friends when we were younger. But I went to boarding school. I was shipped off to a boarding school. And I didn't really know my father that much. So I guess this is the same relationship you and I have. Peter says, you didn't know your father that much? Yeah, I was shipped off to boarding school. Well, my dad worked for your dad. And Harry says, really? He's like, yeah, he did. He worked for your dad, but something happened with him. I don't really know that much about it. He's like, Well, anyway, I wanted just to ask if you could come down to Oscorp or something, hang out. I don't really know that many people in New York. I was just flown in because of my father's. He died, and Peter says, "Yeah, I heard on the news. I'm really sorry about that, man." He says, "It's okay. I didn't really know him that well, so whatever." But I just want to know if you could come on down at Oscorp. Say that Mr. Osborn wanted to see you. Just come down today. And Peter says, "No doubt. All right, sure, yeah, man, that'd be really cool. Okay." And he hangs up. And Peter is looking like, we were friends. Why don't I remember? Then we cut to Harry, and he's sitting at his desk. He's putting the phone down, and Harry is looking at like it's the table. So remember the website for the was it the Electro something? I don't know, but it's the website, and it was like, and in the trailers we see that Harry is manipulating things on a table. Right, it's a table, and it has a screen and stuff in the table. So Harry is looking at it, and he's looking at some stuff, and he's going through some stuff, and then he pulls up a picture of Richard Parker and Norman Osborn, and it's them like smiling together, and he's looking at it, and he's like, I've never seen him smile. And then we cut. Now it's Peter Parker. And he's on the phone with Gwen, and he's like, "Gwen, you busy?" She's like, "No." He's like, well, are you at Oscorp?" And she's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm on my way to Oscorp." And she's like, "Really? Why?" And he's like, "Harry Osborn called me, and he said apparently that we used to be friends when we were really young. And he called me, and he wanted me to come down, I guess, to hang out with him. I don't even remember us being friends. I don't think I would forget something like that." And she's like, "That is kind of odd." And Peter's like, "You want to know what else is odd?" He said the same thing. He didn't remember us being friends. He said that his father told him that we were friends before his father died. She's like, "So you're coming down now?" He says, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay, maybe I'll meet you or something. Meet up with you." And he's like, "Okay, all right." So now Peter enters Oscorp. And he walks up to the security desk, and is immediately, someone says, "Mr. Parker?" And Peter says, "Yes." He's like, come this way. And he's talking to the person who's Donald Minkin. He's like, "Peter Parker, wow. Do you know who I am?" And Peter says, "No." He says, "I'm Donald Minkin. I worked with your father. I was your father's, I was Norman Osborn's right-hand man and your father's friend." And Peter says, "Oh, okay, that's cool." And Peter doesn't really know how to respond. And he's like, "Do you know anything about my father's work and stuff that he did?" And Donald Mencken says, it's a shame what happened to your father, and it's a shame that he did what he did, because he was a great man. From what I knew of him, it's a shame. And Peter's like, I don't even fully know what happened. And Donald Mencken says, I don't know either. The business didn't really concern me. It was just between your father and Norman Osborn, and it was a shame about the plane crash, the situation, and that, and him running off. That was because he didn't seem like that type of person to me. And Peter's looking at Donald, and we can see him becoming more convinced that his father did it. And Peter goes, and he says, get on this elevator, go right up. When you get off, you'll see Mr. Osborn. He'll be there. And he smiles at him, gives him a smile. He walks off, gets on the elevator. And Peter's on the elevator, and he's like, my father really did those things? I thought my father was a respectable human being. Why would he sell out his best friend for money? Why would he do that? Run away like a coward. So then he gets off the elevator, and Harry Osborn is there. He's like, Peter. And Harry and Peter looks at Harry. He's like, Harry. And they shake hands. And when they look at each other, they kind of almost, we can kind of see like a recognition, like they recognize each other almost in a way, like a Peter, Harry, and stuff like that. So it's kind of a recognition. So then they begin talking about stuff, talking about their fathers, talking about how they both didn't really know each other, talking about how Peter's talking about how what he just found out, and Harry knew nothing about it. Harry's like, I had no idea about your father selling out my father. Like I said, I wasn't really around that much. I barely even knew my dad. And we can see Harry has a little bit of anger when he mentions his dad. I barely even knew my father. I mean, and Peter says, yeah, but my girlfriend, she works here for you. She works for you. And Harry's like, really? No doubt. He's like, yeah, she works. Her name's Gwen. He's like, Gwen Stacy. And Peter says, yeah, you know him? He says, yeah, you know her? Excuse me. He says, yeah, you know her? He's like, no, you said Gwen, and I just pulled it up right here. He's like, oh, that's sweet. What is that? He's like, it's my little computer thingy. And she's like, computer thingy? He's like, yeah, I don't know what they call it, but it's like basically a computer on the table. I can go through things and stuff, go on the internet, go to YouTube, stuff like that. And he's like, oh, that's pretty sweet. How much you think this costs? And he's like, I don't know, probably $1 million. And Peter goes, $1 million? And Harry's like, yeah. But anyway, the reason why I wanted you to come down here is because I wanted to really talk to you about my father, and I want us to be cool, okay? I want us to be cool, because especially with you telling me what happened with your dad and stuff like that, I want us to be cool. I want to feel like I belong here in this city, and I want to have a friend, and I feel like you and I connecting, coming back together, we can be really good friends. And Peter says, all right, man, okay. And then Peter's phone goes off. He answers it. He's like, oh, it's Gwen. And Harry says, go ahead. He answers it, hey, Gwen, what's going on? And she's like, nothing, are you here? And he's like, yeah, I'm at Oscorp. And Harry's like, dude, you should invite her up to the office. And Peter's like, really? And Harry's like, yeah. And Peter says, Gwen, you want to come up and meet Harry Osborn? And she's like, sure, definitely. And then it cuts to Gwen, and we see her. She was looking up Max Dillon. She was looking at Max Dillon, like what happened to him. She turns off the computer. She gets up, and she's walking toward like the elevator, and security is like behind her, but she doesn't realize it. She walks towards the elevator, and she like presses the button for the elevator to open, and she steps inside. And then it closes, and when it closes, we see security like looking at her, and it closes. cut back to Peter. Peter's sitting in the office, and Harry is like, you know, I don't know how my father really did all this stuff. You know, I don't know what his purpose for building this company was. My father was a genius. My father, he did so much. But what was his purpose for building this company? And Harry gets up and he's walking around. And Peter's like, I don't know. And Harry says, I mean, my father, he put so much hard work into this company, but forgot about me. He forgot about me. And now here I am, trying to be the best son that he wants me to be, even though he knows nothing about me. He wants me to be something like him. And Peter says, well, maybe he did the things that he did for you. And Harry looks at Peter. He says, but he didn't even know me. Peter doesn't really know what to say. He knows this is a delicate situation. And Harry says, but there's one thing that I just don't understand. He's my father and I love him. I loved him. I loved him and I didn't even know him and he didn't even know me. Peter says, the same way with me, man. I didn't know my father that well. He left when I was 10. He left. He sold your dad out and he left me. And then Harry looks at him and he said, and what happened? Peter said, the plane that he was leaving on crashed. And Harry turns around and he's looking out at the city. It crashed? Peter looks at him. And then behind, and Peter's, Spider says, choom, 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 choom. Then behind Peter, Electro appears. And Peter looks at him, and Electro goes, choom! That's the end of part 6. Stay tuned for part 7. Vince me. Peace. Peace.
Venom 2 million.